Hi students, 12 lectures I have given you on nationalism in Europe when we were sending you the videos during the lockdown, and in those topics, let me recall, the first topic was about Frederick Sorio. Next topic, I gave you certain terms like nation states. Before that, a utopian vision of Frederick Sorio. We had discussed the Statue of Liberty. After that, we had discussed about the rise of a new concept that was liberal nationalism. Aristocracy was there, middle class was there. Middle class in every European country decided to revolt because it was a period of autocratic rulers, absolute kings, Bourbon dynasty, Habsburg Empire. They were ruling over the whole empires and they were divided into duchies and cantons and kingdoms. Different rulers, different dynasties, and people were diverse. Even language was not common in many countries. There were severe problems. We have discussed about French Revolution and its aftermath. We have discussed about Napoleon, about Vienna Congress. All these topics I have given you in case you can listen to the previous lectures. We had discussed about the unification processes, rise of revolutionaries like Mazzini and Garibaldi. We had discussed about the unification of Germany, which was divided into 39 states. It was a confederation of 39 states. We had discussed about the unification of Italy in the previous lectures. It was divided into 7 states, but problems were acute. And finally, before that, before part 13, in the part 12, I told you about a strange case of Britain. What we know about Britain, United Kingdom today, it was not so in the 18th century, and there was a protracted conflict between the parliamentary forces, that is the subject, the people, and the monarch. And then there was Act of Union, and Britain became a nation state by incorporating in itself Ireland, Scotland, and Welsh automatically surrendered. So just to give you a summary, and today the linked with that topic, I am beginning with the next topic, that is personification of an abstract idea or visualizing the nation. See listeners, it is very easy to portray a person who is in concrete sense alive. We can portray our leaders. We can make a portrait, we can make a picture of our freedom fighters, our prime ministers, because they are alive, because we can see them. But how could we give shape to a thing which has no concrete shape? But the artist and the sculptorist of the 19th century did it. They visualized those things and they made these pictures, they made caricatures, they made statues of even those things which were not concrete. Can you recall the first lecture of this chapter? Statue of Liberty. Liberty is a sense, it is a feeling. We are enjoying liberty. But the revolutionaries of France, they gave shape to the liberty and gave it a shape of a female allegory. Allegory dictionary meaning is personification of an abstract idea. So a Statue of Liberty was made. She holds in one hand a revolutionary document, Rights of Men, prepared by Thomas Jefferson, and in the other hand she holds the torch of enlightenment, the torch of enlightenment, that is knowledge. And she stands on the shattered remains of the absolute institutions. What is it? It is allegory. We cannot touch liberty or we cannot see liberty, but we can feel that we have liberty, we have freedom. But the sculptorists of the 19th century in France, they did it and they made the Statue of Liberty. Now, there was a question mark on all these allegories, that why female figure was chosen for all this. Let me give you some examples. Like I gave you the Statue of Liberty. In Germany, it was Germania. Beautiful lady, a very strong lady holding a sword, readiness to fight, wearing a crown of oak leaves because oak stands for heroism in Germany. She is guarding the Rhineland with a sword in her hand. She is very brave. She is very beautiful and composed. So that represented Germany. Similarly, in France, it was Christian Marini. Christian Marini doesn't stand for a woman in real life, but she was portrayed as a symbol of republic in France, wearing a red cap, that is revolution. So now we are discussing about Europe, but just to bring you close to the topic, in India, Bharat Mata, images of Bharat Mata. Bharat Mata is not a lady in real life, or it was not a lady in real life. It was an allegory picturized, because each nation considered itself she, that is female. India is my country, she has beautiful gardens, she has beautiful mountains. So most of the countries, almost all the countries, they consider themselves as motherland, female. Remember, when France became a republic, they said we are the la patrie, fatherland. For the first time, we are the decision makers, because it was male domination. But countries represented themselves in the form of female, she. So that is why female figures were adopted everywhere. Germany, France, even in India and in the other countries, female figures were created, they were adopted to bring people close to the freedom struggles, close to the unification movements, and so that people could feel that they are one. Like in the first lecture of this chapter, you must have seen there is Statue of Liberty, people are marching in a long train, they are paying homage to the Statue of Liberty. What is it? It is that representing integrity and unity among the people, and they all are paying homage to the Statue of Liberty. Similarly, Germania, she became an allegory for German Empire. Like I told you, in France, it was Statue of Liberty. Statue of Liberty famous in most of the countries of Europe and even in Asia and Africa. In France, it was Christian Marini. Her statues were placed at every public square to remind people that we have a republic. And wherever she is wearing a red cap, that is symbol of revolution. Similarly, some icons and symbols were also adopted. You know, the thing is, the main purpose behind it was that everybody could see it, everybody could see the statues, could see the allegories, and they could identify themselves with it. That we all belong to the same nation, we all belong to the same category. So some icons and symbols were adopted, like I told you, oak is a tree, oak leaves, it stands for heroism in Germany. Open sword, readiness to fight. Olive branches, readiness to peace. If two armies are fighting and one is showing the olive branches, that is we are ready to make peace. Broken chain, being free. The red, golden and black flag that was adopted by the Germans, that was the flag of liberal hopes. Similarly, in India also so many icons and symbols were adopted. Germany adopted the symbol of breast-pressed eagle, that is strong German Empire. So all these things, you know, one more, that is rays of rising sun, that is beginning of a new era, that is era of nation states, end of absolutism, and growth of republic and democratic ideals, social and democratic republics as you know it. So all these things were created in the 19th century to bring people close to national movement, and even students, those people who were not very educated, and I told you in my previous lectures that this was the period of 18th and 19th century, there was height of illiteracy in Europe. So even those people who could not read the documents, read the pamphlets that were issued by the revolutionaries, at least they could identify themselves with these icons and symbols, and they could identify themselves with the allegories that were adopted. Fallen Frankfurt, they created it. Then Germania, guiding the Rhineland, taking a sword in her hand. Rhineland is a militarized area of Germany. You can see in your NCERT first chapter the pictures, the images of Germania, Christian Marini, etc. Today the images of Christian Marini, they have been there on the seals and on the stamps. So even today they are popular. Statue of Liberty, popular all over the world. So this was the role played by the allegories in different countries in the 19th century. This is your 5 marks topic for board examination, and also 1 mark question on Germania, different symbols, icons, Statue of Liberty, etc. You can get all these things. Okay. then we switch over to another topic for today, that is nationalism and imperialism. Again, in the previous lectures, I have given you so many times the meaning of nationalism. Whenever we put ism, ISM, before any word, that becomes a philosophy. Nationalism. Okay, so that becomes a philosophy. Imperialism, that is a philosophy of the European countries at that time. So philosophy. So let me tell you something about nationalism, which I have already told you. A feeling of love towards your country, a feeling of love towards your nation. When you love your country, when you are ready to do something good for your country, and when you are ready to sacrifice yourself for the sake of the nation, that is nationalism. Today, when there is national anthem, we stand straight and we listen to it and we also sing it. When there are national festivals, we salute the flag and we become very, every day is celebrated like we are patriotic towards our nation, but there are certain days which are peculiar for it. So that is, we are showing a feeling of nationalism towards our country. Whatever nation faces, we are there. Happy moments, we become happy. Not happy moments, we are not happy. So this is nationalism, and this was the force that came in Europe. People realized that this is our nation. We have to set up republics and democracies because absolute monarchs were not good. So nationalism. Now nationalism is a very ideal feeling. It's a very good, very ideal feeling, and everybody should be nationalist. Okay, European countries were nationalist, so they fought for their unification. In Germany, unification process was there, and in other countries like Italy, France adopted a republic, nationalism. So it's a very ideal feeling. Up to the last quarter of the 19th century, nationalism was very ideal in Europe also. But in the last quarter of the 19th century, in the last 25 years of the 19th century, it was converted into a narrow creed with limited ends. A narrow creed with limited ends. Up to the 75 years of the 19th century, European countries were fighting for their own unification processes and to become nation states. And they were asking other countries also that if you also want to become nation states, we are there to help you. Do you remember Jacobin clubs? Do you remember the ideals of the French nationalists that if any European country wanted to get rid of their absolute monarchs, we are there to help you? Ideal nationalism. But in the last quarter of the 19th century, this nationalism was converted into, let me give you a very easy word of imperialism, that is extreme nationalism. The theory of chauvinism, my country good or bad, my country good or bad. Extreme nationalism. It was a narrow feeling, and in the last quarter of the 19th century, Europeans were driven by it. Even the kings, the monarchs of that time, they even got support of the public. That means we have to develop at any cost by destroying the power of the others. Extreme nationalism, you can call it a feeling of selfishness, a selfish feeling that I have to develop only my nation and on the cost of the others. Getting any example? European countries, they colonize the different parts of Asia, Africa and Latin America. European countries and Western powers. Why? To get more raw material, to get cheap labor, to get markets and what not. Particularly superiority, to get the power. When they are colonizing the other countries, obviously it became a symbol of power, prestige. As many colonies as a country will have in Europe will be very powerful. And this led to First World War and then Second World War. Because of extreme nationalism, when we teach students in higher classes history, causes of the First World War, causes of the Second World War, the first and the foremost cause is imperialism. Imperialist rivalries and conflicts. Some countries like Britain had many good colonies, like India was their jewel. They had many colonies in Asia and Africa, while other countries like Germany, Italy, who became united later, they had either no colonies or very little colonies, leftover colonies. So these imperialistic rivalries and conflicts, they led to the First World War in 1914 and till 1918. First World War was fought, very drastic, very costly industrial war, and then again from 1939 to 1945 Second World War, and that war was fought between Axis powers and Allied powers. So this was the result of extreme nationalism. Hitler used to say that I want to make Germany a world power, I want to take revenge of the defeat of Germany in the First World War. What is it? Extreme nationalism. So, do you know, nationalism is an ideal feeling. Everybody should be nationalist. But when it takes the shape of extreme nationalism, my country good or bad, it takes the term of imperialism, becoming imperial power, developing yourself at the cost of the others. This led to a series of wars in Europe. Okay, and the next topic which is following, Balkan issue. This will give you a very good example of imperialism. Balkan problem. Balkan, which is a peninsula in Europe, comprising modern day Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Montenegro, Herzegovina, Bosnia, Croatia, Slovenia. So many countries. Peninsular region. And in the medieval period, it was inhabited by the Ottoman Empire. I am telling you again and again that medieval period was the period of Muslims. Muslims were very strong in the medieval period. Even in India, there was Muslim rule in the medieval period. And now you can get it. Now you can imagine that Muslims were so strong that they even inhabited the European peninsula under them. Right? And they were ruling over them. But in the 19th century, this Ottoman Empire was declining and Christians were coming up gradually. So there was Balkan issue. And the question on this topic will be, why Balkan region became a source of tension in Europe in the 19th century? Whenever you get this question, 5 marks question, relate it with this one, which is 3 marks topic, nationalism and imperialism. Because this is rightly an example of this, and the topic allegory I have given you, it is of 5 marks. So whenever you get this question, relate it with extreme nationalism. This is the example that in the 19th century it was a period of Christians and Muslim empire was on its decline. It was disintegrating and they had inhabited the Balkan Peninsula in Europe. I have given you some states also. You can learn any of them, Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece. They are very easy. Montenegro, Herzegovina, Bosnia, Croatia. When you go through, you will learn all these states also. So they called themselves Slavs, not slaves. Slav, S-L-A-V-S. This is Slavs, a caste in European Peninsula. So all the people of the Balkan states, they called themselves Slavs, and when they came to know that in the modern period which is going on, 19th century, these Muslim empire or the Ottoman Empire is becoming less powerful and they are declining, they are disintegrating, they were united. They all were united and they called themselves Slavs and they asked the Ottoman Empire to grant them independence. Their long lost independence should be given back to them. However, Ottoman Empire still not ready to give them power. Ottoman Empire still wanted to rule over them and they just avoided them by giving some concessions that let us give some reforms to them and they will be silent. But no, now there was nationalism in Balkans. Nationalism in Balkan states. One by one, they freed themselves from the Ottoman Empire and they declared their independence, hoping that as they supported Greek War of Independence in the Treaty of Constantinople, similarly European countries will support the Balkan people. But this did not happen. This never happened. So tomorrow we will discuss the further developments in Balkans. Till this topic you have to do and make your notes accordingly, according to the marks I have given you, and tomorrow we will discuss that how developments took place in Balkans and how it became a source of tension in Europe, leading to the First World War, a disaster in the world. Thank you, students.